Hey, Dr. Tom here with you today, and with a very special guest, friend and colleague from the Great White North of Canada, Dr. Melissa Longo. Melissa, welcome.
Hey Tom, I'm honored to be here with you today.
Well, absolutely, it's a pleasure to have you here, and I'm excited for our conversation. And as is so commonly the case with these conversations, we're chatting down a few things beforehand. We said, "Damn it, we should have turned the record button on because there was just some great dialogue going on." So we're not 100% certain just whether all of that early convo will get covered in this, but we're optimistic. So Melissa, let's just take a little bit of time and just tell the audience a little bit about yourself. How you came to be where you are, and that stuff.
I'll try to keep it short because, like most of us in our lives, the journey to get me here involves lots of other pieces and steps. So I practice, like you said, in not quite the Great White North, but north of Toronto. I'm in Collingwood, Ontario, Canada. I love living here. I've been here for 15 years, which coincides with how long I've been a chiropractor. I'm in a private practice in my home. I have two awesome kids, boys, they're 15 and 11, so they keep me busy. I'm happily married. And right now I'm also doing a lot of cool things for women in chiropractic, which is really fulfilling and exciting for me as well.
Yeah, which is of course one of the reasons that we wanted to connect and chat some more because with our background and this recording is being done. My side of it, at least, is being done from my beautiful Wilderness Lodge, which Melissa was up and did a retreat with us, a mind body spirit retreat years ago. And when I swung the camera on the laptop around so Melissa could see out the window, she was like, "Oh my God, it just makes my heart happy." So
I
yeah,
know, it's still, even seeing you sitting there is making me just feel really happy because, we talk about the journey to get us to discovering ourselves and what we want out of life and how we're going to make an impact in the world. And I've had lots of really cool experiences, but certainly being at that retreat was profound for me. So I love the view and I love what you're doing. So thanks for having me.
well, that's great. Well, and of course, the synchronicity here is that our mission at Full Circle is to awaken individuals to the power of their authentic expression and help them realize their full potential personally and professionally. So, joint venturing and having conversations with Melissa and the tribe that she's building and what she wants to accomplish for women and particularly for female chiropractors is very congruent with ours. Because as a professional coach consultant now 20 years, chiropractor for almost 30, there's a great untapped resource of chiropractors out there, particularly in the female half of the profession, in my opinion, that just are not necessarily finding the level of fulfillment and joy and therefore prosperity that they could be having in their lives. And that's one thing that we're work diligently to shift and evolve, and I know you do as well, Melissa. So let's just chat a little bit about that, Melissa. Tell me what some of the aspects of your practice that you just love, and maybe some of how that's a bit unique because you've really thought through the whole masculine and feminine energy dynamics, and as we were talking off camera, there's some differences if you're a breastfeeding mom and stuff, right? So let's sort of wade into the conversation there.
Yeah, I think what you just said. I mean, I've been there. I've been a mom around the same time. I mean, I graduated from CMCC, had my first son 4 days later. So by the time I wrote my board exams when he was 6 weeks old. So I've been technically a mother longer than I've been a chiropractor, I guess. So I don't know any other way. And I know that many years in practice were really difficult for me because I was always trying to juggle these two parts of my heart, the part of my heart that is innately wants to be a mom. And like any woman, and then many dads too can attest to, I mean, there's such a profound, feeling there. I know what we want to give for our children. And then there was the other side of my heart, which is, loves chiropractic and was super excited to get into practice. But my whole practice time, was challenging because I was trying to find out what's that going to look like for me. And for a really, really long time, the only measures of success I had were numbers and volume and collections, and forget about my personal balance or how happy I was feeling, or the connections I had, or the results I was even getting with people. And long story short, my first husband was a chiropractor. We had a practice together. Our marriage dissolved, and then I had to start a business again on my own. And most challenging time of my life, but also the most fulfilling. And I'm here now in a home-based practice, something I would have never imagined, and really in a style of practice that resonates exactly with who I am as a human being, with the values I have, but more importantly, with the kind of mom I want to to be. You know, when I realized, when my marriage dissolved and I had to rebuild my practice, it was still a shared space with my ex-husband. We were able to remain business partners for some time, but I was dealing with, you know, the what we all think we want, or I thought I wanted, you know, a whole team of people. We had other therapists. We had, you know, more space. I was managing that, plus my house, plus my 2 kids. I was a single mom. And after a period of time, I realized this isn't working for me. I'm not present with anyone, and I'm stressed. So something's got to change. And the more I realized I could simplify my life and start really stripping away all the things that were causing me more stress and not filling me with joy, everything changed. So that's when I decided to move into a home-based practice. What we're sitting in right now is my adjusting room. And the pediatric table over here as well. There's a reception room and a deck and some patio and some parking, rather. I walk through this door here, and it's my kitchen, and it goes into my house. So as my children have gotten older, you know, I can do both really, really well. And I'm, again, just what works for me is simplifying things. So, yeah, I think I answered your question, gave you sort of a snapshot of what's important to me is simplifying the things that I don't want to do to give me more time to do the things I do want to do. Which is how I define my success. You know, I want to live a lifestyle of prosperity and fun and abundance and provide for my family. But I also have learned that what makes me happy as a woman is my relationships and the time flexibility that I have and the quality of my own health and my self-care and balance. So I measure my success in all those parameters. And like I said, there's been lots of people that have been influential with that too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I think you bring up so many good points there, Melissa, right? About, you know, defining success on your terms. And, you know, as we were chatting off camera, in my 20 years as a professional consultant, one of the things that surprised me the most was how difficult it could be for people to actually, you know, lock in on their definition of success. I mean, there's so many outside influence voices. I mean, media and marketing and Hollywood and friends and whatever, you know, whether it's we're talking about our business success, we're talking about our practice success or relationships, you know, whatever. And so getting people to define that, I think is a really important step. And so certainly I want to, you know, give you accolades where they're due on you, you know, stopping the wheels of motion and saying, you know, hey, what is it that makes me happy? What is it that brings me joy? And let's create and manifest, you know, that in that ideal, right? Because again, I found in my experience that particularly with moms, there is that common sort of binomial that comes up with their desire to serve and give and look after their professional interests, but also that, you know, that wiring that says I want to be, you know, a great mom and be a part of my children's lives, not just, you know, have a nanny, you know, raise them all the time, right? And it's that struggle is there. So tell me a little bit about that for you, Melissa, right? How have you, what thought processes, what tools have you used or reflected on in order to find that balance, you know, for you?
Well, I think, you know, in so many things that just popped up with what you just shared. I think for a long time, a lot of our role models within chiropractic have been predominantly male. There's always a few females here and there, but I felt over many years, like, you know, I got a lot of the most value from some of the mentors and coaches I've had and speakers on stage, but even from my chiropractic girlfriends, you know, the women who were living the lives I was trying to live with kids, because as we talked about earlier too, you know, chiropractic paradigm is healthy living. So if you want to really raise a healthy family, you know, you need to be mindful of how much time and love and attention you're giving to feed their soul. You need to be mindful of the food that's going in their body. So, yeah, making your own food takes time. You know, it doesn't, it's not like quick takeout food doesn't belong in human bodies, right? So making time for me to cook for my kids is a big deal. Being present for them. I mean, all those other things when they were younger. I mean, how many moms need to coordinate their breastfeeding schedules, or they're co-sleeping, and they want to be quite connected and attached to their kids. So now they're structuring their practice hours around their feeding schedules. I mean, I think women go through so many different stages with motherhood, and if their practices can accommodate that, that's best case scenario. It's not always that easy. For me personally, certainly moving to a home-based practice was a big step. You know, and at the beginning it was tough for my sons because they never knew when I was at work, I just wasn't with them. So now I was often in the same building, and you know, they couldn't really they thought I was working all the time when I wasn't. I just was in the same building, and hold on, I got to go to work. And at that point too, I was just building. So I didn't want to miss a phone call. I didn't want to miss an email. I was more present or trying to be present in every way. But as time has gone on, there's freedom and flexibility around all of that. So that, I think, as a mom is the key. It's trying to create a practice lifestyle that works around your family needs and can also shift as time goes on. I mean, so many of the guests on my show have talked about making their practice hours reflect what their kids have needed at different times. So maybe, when their children get into competitive sports, they decide they want to, close early on a Tuesday because they want to get to the hockey game. And those are making choices, like you said, about defining what success is like for you and, making sure that your business life can support, your values in your home as well.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. So it's that, the work-life balance is talked about so often, Melissa, right? In terms of finding that for yourself. And what I've found in my life with my 5 daughters is it's a constantly shifting target, right? It moves here and it moves there. And I actually was just, as you were talking about, the closing early on a Tuesday or whatever, but I can remember I just shot a vlog about this yesterday, actually, and I was overhearing one of my, husband and wife in an adjusting room, and so they were saying, I wonder what Dr. Tom's hours are going to be, this month. And the husband says, well, I guess it depends upon what sports or activities his kids are into, right? And I just kind of smiled outside, both outside and inside, saying, what an affirmation, because, my practice members valued the care. And the illusion I think that many entrepreneurs live with is that you can't have that flex, because a lot of people get into being entrepreneurs so they have the flex to work when they want, with who they want, and take holidays when they want. And then they don't do that. They become slaves to their own business. And I've talked to so many, particularly women, that are almost like at times resentful of the other moms coming into their office, to get adjusted, because they have the flex to go to the ballet recitals on short notice and do this kind of stuff. Because I think, again, many people are stuck with the illusion, and I will use that word carefully, an illusion, that you can't close early on a Tuesday to go to a hockey game, or you can't switch your hours next week, because people, need to have that consistency. And I personally disagree with that. What's been your experience with that, Melissa?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I think if you're providing good value for people in your practice, they like you, they get you, you're relating to them, you're engaging with them, they'll work around whatever hours you want to give them. So they will make it work. And for me, I'm a family wellness practice. So, and I see a lot of families. That's my perfect patient. So, my summer hours, for example, is I just said, I'm not changing my hours. I'm just saying, let's all be more flexible, which means I'm going to be available during hours that maybe the office is normally closed to accommodate families who now are, vacationing, or their children are home from school and they want to come at 1 in the afternoon when normally I'm closed. I'm going to be honoring more flexibility. In exchange, I'm going to be more flexible in that you might notice during my regular Tuesday morning, I'm cutting out for half an hour to drive my son to the golf course. So it's that give and take, and no one, I've changed my hours over the years very minimally, but it's a respectful, reciprocal relationship that we have. And so, no, absolutely, I would say you create the hours that you want, and if you're creating enough value for people within chiropractic and they want to get there, they will make it work, hands down. My practice is only open 25 hours a week. So, there's a lot of things that I've still modeled in my boutique home style practice here that is modeled after other high volume practices and things I've learned over the years. I've just tailored them to fit this dynamic a little differently. So I still am consistently, I'm cluster booking, I follow up, do recalls. We do all the really consistent exams, all the really great things that keep the practice moving and growing and high retention. But just honoring that the hours can work in your favor if you create them. I think it starts with here though, right? I mean, if you're really solid on what your value is, and your service that you're providing, and you're in line with your values, like one of my top core values is connections. Like I love my relationships. So my practice reflects that, because I also am connected to people here and building relationships with them. So, those two things I think go hand in hand, really knowing yourself and knowing your own values and the kind of practice you want. Like, and let's be frank. I mean, what we're talking about here might not relate to everyone. There's plenty of women that want a high volume practice, that want a huge team, and that makes them happy. It didn't make me happy. And what I realized in my conversations with all these other moms on my podcast is it's very consistent. So, I wanted to give a voice to, like I know you do, to women who are running smaller practices that are still contributing to their society. And what I also want to make sure we're getting across is that, just because a woman or a man runs a smaller size practice doesn't mean they're less passionate about chiropractic, doesn't mean they don't want to work hard, doesn't mean they're not smart enough, doesn't mean they can't run a business. Like we talked about earlier, it's often choices that they're making consciously to create a successful life for them.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And that's, as I study quantum physics and look at the sine waves, of life, right? It's just, that's the rhythmic nature of the fabric of our universe, right? Is to go through the cycles. I think of a client of mine, a very successful chiropractor in the west coast of Canada, who, when her children were young, she chose to work a couple of hours on Tuesday afternoons, a couple hours on Thursday afternoons. And that was like ideal for her for a period of time. And that was, and then when the kids went to school and there was that vacuum there, she started to work more hours, right? And so, there's those phases, I guess I would call them, Melissa, in our lives, right? Where, that's the right choice now. It may not be the right choice, next year, 5 years from now, or whatever. And I think keeping that, what I perceive to be the vitalistic paradigm of chiropractic at our hearts, we realize that, things can shift. So I want to get into something, Melissa, because I would be surprised if there's any listener to this that doesn't go, yeah, work-life balance, I get that. Yeah, honoring, my values and what's important to me, yeah, I get that. And they get it here, but they don't necessarily implement it, right? So, in your experience with chiropractors, particularly female chiropractors, what have you seen to be the one or two reasons that jump to mind with why people don't actually take the action steps to manifest, using our example of, hours in their ideal or flexible hours or getting over this feeling of guilt that BJ Palmer's rolling over in his grave because they're not seeing 500 a week or whatever, right? Like, what are some of the more common blocks, subluxations that you've seen in people?
Ooh, that's a good question, Tom.
That's why I asked.
I think it's part of it would certainly be, I want to say certainty is what comes to mind first. Mm-hmm. Certainty, maybe within chiropractic, that what they're able to deliver, the kind of care they can deliver to someone will actually be solid in less hours, and that they can actually build a business that is aligned with that kind of that thinking. But I think it would also come down to support. I mean, if you don't have the right support in your life, whether it's coaching or friends or solid relationships within the chiropractic community, people that can keep you accountable, people that can kind of push you. I know for me personally, I've been part of a mastermind group for, I think we just celebrated our 6th anniversary. 6 years, we're on the phone together every Thursday morning for an hour, myself and 3 other chiropractors. In fact, number 4, the 4th chiropractor, has been part of it since your retreat.
Oh, that's
cool.
And
he was one of the other participants there. And anyway, we get on the phone every hour, for an hour every Thursday. And we talk clinic, we talk shop, we talk successes and challenges. But I also know during the harder times of my life where I've struggled with, should I do this or should I do that? They've been really great sounding boards to give me that jump, take a jump. You might have a better experience with this. Like, what encourages people to take a leap when they're held back with fear? I've had to take a leap when I thought my marriage was ending, and with confidence that this is the new direction I wanted to go, opening a practice on my own. With all of your clients that you've experienced, what do you think is the barrier that causes people to not take that leap?
Well, I think you brought up a couple of good ones, Melissa. Certainly certainty is a piece. The support and relationships is a piece for sure. But tied to the certainty piece, Melissa, is, we get into that sort of awkward conversation about literally self-esteem and self-worth, right? And there's an incredible number of people that just either they don't have it as a professional, as you brought up, as a chiropractic professional, they don't have the self-worth or self-esteem that they can deliver the goods or whatever, or they're just their own personal self-worth. They just don't feel like they're worthy of receiving, right? And one of the things that I've found in the healthcare professions, which is where largely I've done my coach consulting work for 20 years, is that most of, I wouldn't stereotype everybody, most are great givers, but they're not as good at receiving, right? And that's a tough thing to be able to just, there's a piece in there tied to self-worth, self-love, that I'm worthy of love, I'm worthy of receiving, I'm worthy of being supported in a mastermind environment, I'm worthy of, taking that, Thursday morning off to spend with my kids instead of having to be at work, which, that really takes us down a rabbit hole, of course, Melissa, right? We get into self-worth, self-love issues, right? Which we may or may not have time to completely, do justice on this particular conversation, but that's a piece. And I think just, there's an old self-development quote that says that 50% of the solution of a problem is just an awareness that there's a problem, so, without maybe getting too deep into it today, I would just say, just if for those people that maybe are listening, that there is some that are sort of in that place of not an appreciation of self or self-love, self-awareness, whatever. Just having an awareness of that. There are things like retreats, for example. There are coaching, there are consulting, there's therapists, there's people that can help work with that piece to help you, overcome that, to get on to, whatever it is that your mission is. And I love the fact, Melissa, that you immediately brought up the construct of a multifaceted approach to a definition of success. I think that's just so incredibly key, because our Western cultural dominance tends to be all about, business and economics. And there's just so much more to live in a rich, fulfilled life. And you brought up, relationships and family and society and other aspects of, who we are as people. And I would really encourage people, and I'm pretty sure there'll be a link associated with this video, to just, download an exercise that we're big advocates of at our company, called I Know I Am Successful When, and then you fill in the blank, right? So that people can actually spend the time to do the soul searching to find out what their own definition of success is based upon their values, so that they can recognize it and when they see it, and then create goals that will move them in the direction, of fulfilling that definition of success. So, I designed it, so I'm a bit biased, but it's a great exercise, and I would encourage, anybody that's in a place of not 100% certainty with how they're defining success to, invest a bit of time and work through that exercise. It's a good tool.
Well, I think definitely, with goal setting and success, I mean, we incorporate into some of the programs we're doing with the Rockstar Dr. Mom community, and that I say, if you're going to set goals for your quarter, then what are your goals for your business, for yourself? So you as a person, and that includes your fitness, your nutrition, your sleep, your stress, your connections, meaning your relationships, and then, your lifestyle. So when I do my goals, and I encourage a lot of the moms too, it's like, we all have projects around the house that you want to get finished, right? You have things that your kids have going on. You have, your personal health you're looking after. If you can set yourself goals based on those criteria, then, you're going to look back and feel you've addressed all those different parts of your lives. Because just like a lot of men, women are balancing lots of different roles. Not just, the doctor role, the mom role, it's maybe the chauffeur, the kitchen, the housekeeper, there's lots of other things that we all have going on in our lives. And I think you need to look at measuring your success also as accomplishing things in all those different parameters, and remembering that you accomplishing those things is just as valuable to your feeling of purpose and productivity as, building a business. Yep. The other thing that came to mind, based on what we were just talking about, was listening to that innate voice. Right. And something that you've taught, so many times, and other mentors, I've have shared, just, when it comes to taking a jump and doing something you're scared of, if you get quiet and really listen and start following that innate voice within you, your gut feeling, whatever you want to call it, it never leads you astray. And sometimes it's taking those small leaps and listening and seeing some success that gives you more confidence to take other ones. But that's something as chiropractors I think we can all relate to, and really getting clear and listening to that. I don't know if you have any ideas to share about how people can tap into that more.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest, as chiropractors, I personally feel we have a leg up, because, to me, the chiropractic adjustment has the potential to do so much, including, as D.D. Palmer said, reconnect man, the physical with man, the spiritual, right? To our inner voice. So I think that relative to the quote unquote average person in the culture, those of us that choose to stay under wellness care and keep our, subluxation patterns minimized, reduced, or eliminated, we've got greater access, to that inner voice. But it's one thing to have access, Melissa. This actually, goes back to what we just touched on briefly. It's one thing to have access, another thing to listen, and then to act on that. And, as a quick sidebar story, the reason I'm here at this beautiful wilderness lodge, which, I've had the privilege of sharing with you, is because of a whisper, if you will, and from my inner voice, to while I was doing a very deep, intensive program with one of my mentors, Dr. John DeMartini, more than 20 plus years ago. And, it was to find and manifest this International Leadership and Healing Conference Center. And it was like a crazy ass idea, right? But I knew that if I didn't listen, I've had so many times where I've been bitten in the ass if I didn't listen to my inner voice when it spoke, that it's like I intending and praying that, I'll never have to learn that lesson again, but I've learned it enough times that, I chose to take action, and it's brought through, some great gifts to me and my family and to others that I've been able to share it with, and stuff, right? So I agree 100%, like listening to that wee small voice within, Of course, there's other tools that I'm an advocate of. For me, my morning rituals, meditation and journaling, and this work I'm doing called subconscious healing codes are great tools. But I think as we look at a little bit of some of the differences between the divine feminine and the masculine, in my experience, Melissa, this is a place where the ladies definitely have another leg up because in my experience, women are more in tune with their intuition. They're more in tune with that sort of inner vibration. I think that men have a tendency, and I'm stereotyping obviously, so I don't want to piss anybody off, but we get really cerebral, right? We get we want to think it all through, right? Whereas I think women have a chance to connect and feel that. And again, I'm stereotyping a bit, but in my observation, much like what you suggested, Melissa, that sense of relationship and connection is really important. And so, if you value that and it's important to you, that may come into your philosophy, technique, and your adjusting protocols, your programs. I mean, I had the highest volume doc I ever worked with who saw staggering numbers of people. He saw 40 people an hour. And it just boggled my mind that he could adjust 40 people an hour, but in his system and protocol and with an assistant doing other things, he could do that. And, but that doesn't mean that that's what anybody else should do. I know some amazing female chiropractors that I would love to get, adjusted by that choose to take maybe 10 minutes in adjustment, instead of a minute and a half. And that works for them because they can bond and connect and do that. And as you'd brought up before, Melissa, right, I'd rather see, 10 women seeing 50 people a week and contributing to the communities and getting fulfillment and engagement than, necessarily just one woman seeing, 500 a week or one chiropractor seeing 500 a week. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I know some great chiropractors that see a huge volume and are very connected and do great work. But in my experience, it's the minority. And so, one of the things I hope to continue to advocate for, and maybe this interview will help with, or this conversation will help with, is to let it be okay for more people who choose to run more of a smaller or boutique style practice. That's okay. You might want to do that now or forever, or you might want to do it for the next 10 years and the kids are older. Maybe you want to crank it up a bit. That's okay. The beauty of an entrepreneur is you can do whatever the heck it is that your heart is calling, right? And I think that's an important piece. So.
Yeah, and that's certainly come up. When I think about all the lessons I've learned from the women I've interviewed on my podcast, two of the things come up consistently. What you shared is women already definitely feel innately that they are more intuitive, that they can pick up things and subtleties with how people need to be adjusted or what's going on with people, or that intuitive sense, but also that they do want to be more connected. And so many women I've talked to, and some of them, are in practices with their partners, and they will acknowledge, look, I take longer because I want to be like this with my patients. Whereas it's not just about the quick, numbers. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's what works for you. And I know when I tried that style, at the end of the day, I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel fulfilled. Now, I have time sometimes to have these really great, to hold someone's baby a little bit longer than they would have liked to, or to give them some advice about something unrelated to chiropractic. And for me, that's also a value because they're becoming long-term people within my practice that value the time I'm giving them. So it's what works for you. But I think it was Terry Warner, Dr. Terry, that said, do what you want. There are no rules. Whatever practice style you want, you can make it your own. And, that will change. As we know, you've got, your girls are all grown up now. So my kids are, they're becoming teenagers. The needs that they have at this stage of their lives is very different than it was 5 years ago. Yeah. And it will be different 5 years from now. But we have that wisdom because we've been there. So for all the moms who are watching the babies and toddlers and are thinking, they can't keep up, it's going to change, right? Yeah. You want to remember that you go through different seasons and life is long and you don't have to do everything right now.
Yeah, no, for sure.
You can plan something down the road.
Well, we just are coming off of Canada Day and the 4th of July, holiday here just around the time of this particular conversation. And so 4 of our daughters were able to get to the lodge this weekend and spend some time with us, which was great. And, and they're, as you said, Melissa, they're getting, older. They're in their late teens, early 20s. And they're talking about having families of their own and the things that, they would like to do and accomplish and all this stuff. And I said, you know what, girls, just remember that your mom and I changed diapers every day of our life for 11 years, minus a 6-week period of time. So just get used to that, but that phase does end. I really honestly thought, Melissa, it would never end, but it does end, and and that's fine. And other stages do come on. And I think that for anybody that values family, which whether it's just the law of attraction and the people I interact with, or what it is, or whether it's just an innate thing in our culture, but I find that there's a tremendous number of people who value family. and building that lifestyle, that chiropractic lifestyle, that healthy lifestyle into your children's lives. And I don't know how you felt about it, Melissa, but some of our parenting strategies were just a good educated guess, and now we get the privilege of having older children, and some of the things that the choices they've made, whether it's nutritional habits, exercise habits, stress management habits, or whatever, you hope they pick some stuff up osmotically or whatever. But I can, definitely be an advocate for saying that promoting the chiropractic healthy lifestyle across the entire spectrum of life, right? All the different mentally, physically, spiritually, and everything. Now we have some older children that are contributing to society, that are, well grounded and balanced, and I, contribute that to conscious, intentional parenting, but also to the essence of what I perceive to be the chiropractic lifestyle message. And so for any moms or dads out there that are listening that are like wondering, it's, I'm only one voice in a wilderness, but I can tell you that from my experience, it does pay off, and you will have valuable members of society, contributing back and stuff, right? So you're getting close to that, Melissa. Your kids are in the teen years, right?
Sir, yeah, but I think that really ties nicely with what we were saying earlier in our conversation. Is that raising good people. And for me, one of my goals as a human being, as soon as I became a mother, which was, like I said, coincides with when I became a chiropractor, was to raise boys to become men who are happy, thriving, healthy, and contributing and engaged in society and making the world a better place, and whatever that's going to look like for them. Yeah. And that kind of person doesn't just happen without time and attention and all the things we talked about, the love, the food, the presence in their lives, and as your kids get older, your roles shift. You're not changing diapers, but now all of a sudden you're coach and therapist and chauffeur and helping them navigate life and big choices in much different ways. And that takes time. If you want to raise good human beings, and that was one of my goals, is just as valuable for me as running a great business, is raising two good men. And they both take a lot of time and energy.
Yeah, for
sure. So, if you want to have a good practice, you're going to do things to grow practice. You want to have great kids, you need to put the time and energy into raising great kids. Yeah. So
I agree.
So many hours in a day.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you brought up something that's very important to me, and I've obviously I'm biased because I think, amazing children, but I've had many people give me feedback that affirms that for me, and they say, "Oh, you're so lucky you've got such great kids." And I just stop them in their tracks. I say, you know what? Bullshit. Luck has nothing to do with it. It's conscious intention. It's discipline. It's at times a grind of hard work and so on. I just was on a coaching call earlier today with a client of mine whose later teenage daughter is just going through a complete crisis. Her and her boyfriend dumped her, and she's just spinning in circles. And as you said, it's nice to be able to have make the choice to have a successful enough business. You can have the time to just be there and hold her hand and let her cry or whatever it is that she needs to do to to process that, right? Because I think of an old quote. It reminds me, Melissa, of Jim Rohn, a great godfather in self-development, Tony Robbins, mentor and stuff. And Jim said that, and I'm paraphrasing a bit, but he said, people spend more time and energy planning their vacations than they do their lives or raising their children. Right. And I think it's true. If people just put more conscious intention and live their lives intentionally, authentically for them, whatever that means for them, I really think that they would be more fulfilled, happier. And the byproduct, and I've heard this in your language several times today, Melissa, when I'm happy and fulfilled, I'm more abundant, I'm more prosperous, you're a better mom, you're a better caregiver, you're a better chiropractor, you're just a more well-rounded person. And I think that's the piece on, as we touched just briefly on the whole self-love piece, is that people sometimes forget that giving receiving is a two-way street, right? And you've got to be able to receive love from others and self in order to be able to give more. So it's counterintuitive, but my observation in 20 years coach consulting is, you want to give more, you got to be able to receive more. And what does that look like, and how could you do that, and be willing to ask for help or support or whatever from others is I think a great sign of strength. It's often inferred as a sign of weakness, but I would offer it's actually a sign of strength.
No, I think one of my lessons definitely has been, the happier I am here, the more fulfilled I am here, the more my practice grows.
Yes.
So I can do all the fancy marketing. I know I've trained with some great marketing people. And, to me, that's also outside in. Do you need to do some of it? Absolutely. But I think it was a BJ quote, too, and you could correct me on this possibly, but, it's something to do with when when you're on fire, everyone wants to watch it burn.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's when you're on fire, when you're engaged, when you're in your space, when you're owning what you're doing as a chiropractor and your heart is full, but because you're going to be healing people or facilitating the healing, you're naturally in that state of attraction. And my greatest practice growth has always been when I'm in that place, in that state. And you can't be in that place if you're burnt out and stressed out and you're not taking time to give yourself the right nutrition or exercise or spend time with the people that fill you up and love you. So it's important as a doctor to get more, to produce more in your practice, in your business. You got to take care of this.
Yeah. Well, and you brought up a good point, Melissa, there to me, because that's not just a good personal choice and a good business choice. It's a good clinical choice, right? Because we've talked so often in this profession about being, PTC, being present time conscious. And when your, self-love tank is full, you can be more present time conscious. You're not scattered. You're not lethargic. You're not, worried about things. Sadly, I heard a chiropractic assistant reached out to me recently and was, sadly, one of our colleagues, male doctor in his later part of his career, went through a tough time and divorce and lots of tough things for him. And he's not in a great place. He's like, I would call him maybe clinically depressed, but he's talking to all those patients about this, about how depressed he is and how down he is and how this. And she says, like, the practice, like, she's like screaming for help. Like, he's a great doc, but he's just like, things are going away because, then in that case, people may want to watch a fire burn, but they don't want to watch it smolder forever, so that inside out state of presence and certainty is really key. So, well, Melissa, this has just been a fascinating conversation, as I knew it would be. I think we've covered a lot of things here, and I'm excited for people to be able to, use this as a frame of reference for their own thinking and stuff. Again, we talked about the opportunity to work through that exercise. I encourage people to work through that. I know I am successful when exercise. Any parting thoughts to share with the audience, Melissa?
Oh, again, I hope this has been of value, and you've heard something from our stories about how you can improve your own life. And yeah, if you like what you're hearing here, certainly the podcast, the Rockstar, I don't know if I mentioned it, but Rockstar Dr. Moms is my podcast for women in chiropractic. It's majority of it are interviews with other moms in practice. So you're going to hear more stories like what we just talked about and real life experiences and tips for practice growth and success as a woman. And there's a great community. There's an online closed Facebook group. So again, just look us up or connect with me directly. And we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, and we'll certainly have the links to all of Melissa's contact information on the podcast and so on. Yeah, we didn't necessarily speak directly about that, but I'm glad you brought that up, Melissa, because it's an important piece of the work that you're doing and the contribution that you're making. So. Again, Melissa, thanks so much for investing some time today to have a conversation. I've enjoyed it immensely. It was great to be able to do it from this space. When we planned the opportunity to do this, I didn't sort of realize or remember that I would be in this space. So it's kind of neat to take us back, 6-7 years now since you were here at retreat and be able to share the vibration of that. So thanks again for taking the time. And
one more screenshot before we sign off here.
Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, I'll just hit the record off here. And for everybody listening, thanks for investing some time with us today. And again, as Melissa said, I hope you found a few pieces that you'd find valuable to either challenge your thinking, shift your thinking, or affirm your thinking. Because either way, it's going to help you be a more fulfilled and prosperous, authentic person. So thanks, everybody, for your time.